Hiya and welcome to Pete's Eats, the lazy cook, putting hunger on the run. This is the first in a series of videos I'm going to do titled Fridge Challenge. It pretty much speaks for itself, but the general idea is that instead of wasting food and throwing it out, we look in the fridge and we see, and the cupboards, to see what we have available, and then we decide on what we're going to cook from what we have available, rather than the other way round. The other way round is where you put up a shopping list, you read a recipe, put up a shopping list, and then you go out and spend a load of money. Well, this is hopefully going to be the other way round, and I've put together a formula for the way we do this, just simply from the way I work myself. Okay, right. It occurred to me that although this is rather tiring, trying to cut in with a full-time job and being a YouTuber in my spare time, it is rather tiring. It takes up a lot of my spare time, but I can't remember vocationally being happier than I am right now. Of course I've been happier in personal things, like when my children were born and those sort of things, but I don't think I've been happier in my vocation than I am now. I'm fortunate in that my main job is in IT, and it was a hobby which turned into an income, and a fairly lucrative one at that. It's okay, you know. I do make a reasonably comfortable living from IT. I'm not rich, but I'm nor am I uncomfortable. So I decided to settle on happy as a mnemonic, to help you and me remember how to go through the fridge challenge process. So first of all, the H is for hunt. So you hunt the fridge, the freezer, and your cupboards, and anywhere else you might have stored stuff, to find ingredients that you need for your dish. And I guarantee you will find things in your fridge, as long as you keep certain staples in the house at all times. The next part, we've done H, so the A is assess and assemble. So you kind of assess what you do have by looking in the fridge, looking in your cupboards, and looking in your freezer. So you find what you're looking for is ingredients that will give you balance, aromatics. Aromatics are things like spices and garlic and things that got the stronger, more pronounced flavours. Other flavourings and the staples you're going to put into your dish. So that's balance, aromatics, flavourings, and staples, right? BAFS, BAFS, or FABS if you want to say that. So your next process, in your next step in the process, is the first P, which is preparation, cut, chop, slice. Simple as that. Moving on from prep, the second P is production. Cook it, season it. That's it. Simple as that. And the final one, the fifth step, the final step, is why. Yummy. That's when you get to eat it. Yeah, we like that. That's the fun part. Okay. So moving on now, you'll see the video that follows will be the first fridge challenge, putting hunger on the run. Okay, be happy. Here we are in Pete's Eats Fridge Challenge, and this is the first episode. I'll give a little preamble which I'll put up just before this bit, just to explain things a little bit better. But I'm going to run through it because I won't have the material for the preamble until I've actually done it. So I said I was going to do it warts and all, and here are the warts. Right, happy is the mnemonic we're going to use. We're going to hunt, and you'll probably see that I've already done that. So I've hunted in my fridge, freezer, cupboard, and I've come up with a few just basic items. And as I was hunting, I was thinking all the time what I could make with it. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, because the next thing in that is assess. H-A, assess and assemble. So you need to sort of assess it by thinking about things like balancing flavours, a balance really, a nutritional balance, a balance of flavour. You're going to achieve that through aromatics, which will include things like garlic, onion and leek, which are very much aromatics, as is the lemon. And the flavourings are things like a stock cube, things with a more pronounced flavour, perhaps like the onions and the aromatics as well, and the pepper in this case. They're more like flavourings. And staples. The staples in this case are potatoes, very common to us. There's a rutabaga, or what we call in England a swede, a Swedish turnip. It's a member of the brassica family of turnip, but you probably know it as rutabaga, and it's one of the principal ingredients of wonderful Branston pickle, which we love over here. Okay, so and the other little thing I've got there is a acorn squash, which is about 2/3 of the size it was 3 days ago. Well, work that one out. I think it's just dehydrated a wee bit. Another great aromatic is basil. I've got some fresh growing basil here, and I'm not going to waste your time because you've all seen my videos, my quick tip videos on prepping up vegetables and that, but you've seen it on things like carrots, on potatoes, on onions and peppers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to run down the preparation of a leek and this little cove, because he's difficult and he's even more difficult. So I'm going to run down those first. So let me put those back because they look good in composition, don't you think? Don't they look lovely? I'll put them back to front, but there you go, they still look great. Okay, so leek. I've taken the leek, it's trimmed and it's topped, but if you look just inside the leek, you'll see a bit of soil and stuff. The way I combat this, the way I get rid of that, is you can chop it up to bits and then take it over to the sink and wash it, but that's really not the quick and efficient and lazy chef way to do things. So what I do is I run the knife all the way down it, but not to the base. So I leave that bit intact for this next bit, because if you see, as I'm washing it now, I just peel the leaves open until it's clean and run it under water, because this is just fine grit and sand. Alright, so it gets washed in and washed out by the rain as it's growing, or by the conditions in the polytunnel more likely, and we're able to wash it. So I'm just going to wash that now and I'll come back to you in a sec. So I washed all those bits, and drained it, I still keep this intact, still keep this bit intact, and you'll see why now. Because when I go to chop it up, and I want this fairly fine because I want it to give a lot of its flavour into the stock, into the sauce. Because apart from the things you see assembled here, and that includes the sieve tomato passata, this is one of the main flavouring, one of the main bodies of this, what I'm going to be making here. Can any of you guess what I'm going to do right now? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll put you out of your misery. I was just going to make an ordinary stew soup, but I realised I had another can of rose cocoa beans or pinto beans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into a soup. I'm going to blend it up, and right at the end I'm going to add the beans so that they're a texture element within the soup. How does that sound? Sounds good? Right, let's get on with it. So now we have the leeks, and leeks, as I said, are an aromatic. They impart an awful lot of delicious flavour into your food. I've won pie competitions with leek cheese and potato pie, in which some of the viewers who know me will know just how good that is. And I'm going to not waste your time with all the other stuff just now. I'll do that off camera if you don't mind, because I've got limited power in my camera, so I need to move on. I'm sure you're all desperately interested to see how I prepare that, but I'm going to keep you in suspense for a minute while I do the boring old Swede. Okay, Swede rutabaga. What I do, a really efficient way of doing and lazy way of doing Swede, is to cut about a ½ inch or around about a centimetre piece off it. There we go. Right, in order to make this Swede cook easily, I need to cut it into fairly small pieces because it's rather dense, more dense than a potato, and the same goes of the acorn squash as well, because that's rather dense. It's also rather sweet, so if you're diabetic, beware of the sweetness of certain things if you are making, and you have to count it. Carrots, for instance, are rather sweet. Lemon, although it doesn't look it, it tastes very bitter, is still quite sweet in terms of the amount of sugar it carries, as is garlic. Garlic is exceedingly sweet, but you've seen that in the garlic prep video if you watched it, and if not, why not? You should watch it. Go watch it. But not yet. Okay, let's so you see what I did there? It was very easy. I've cut it into these manageable pieces, and now I'm just lazily just chopping off the edges. This one was starting to get a bit wrinkly at the skin, so I'm not too worried about throwing that much away, because that can end up in the compost anyway. And I think we can still coach some out of that. I'm doing it the same way, more or less, just holding my knife at a bias and doing it that way first, because that when I come to do this way there'll be less to chop off. So let's just put a base on that and put one through there. So waste not, want not. So these are things that were sat in the bottom of the fridge. Yeah, in Britain we're known to throw away huge amounts of food. I'm sure the same is true elsewhere in the world. You put it in the fridge, you don't throw it away, you wait 2 weeks until it goes rotten, then you throw it away. Okay. And then I'm cutting it into a fairly small dice. You see there? First of all, cutting it into battens and then into a dice. Very simple. It follows the top, tail, peel and chop process. I'm putting the aromatics and the staples in and breaking them apart, and I'll tell you for why in a minute. That can go into the staple pot. And I just show you, for instance, on this one. I think I use a big one. On this, I know that everything that's on up to the beans is going to be pureed, so I really don't care too much how it looks. So I don't take the skin off, but I do take out any black bits. I just don't like them. And so that's that. Carrots, wash. The jury's really out on this, whether you should peel or not peel, because most of the nutrition lies just beneath the skin. However, I'm not sure we can totally trust what gets rinsed into the soil from the atmosphere these days, so do be a little bit careful. And if you buy in, you can buy carrots from organic sources, which are very nice and possibly safer to use in that respect. But personally, I prefer to peel them, and I use the peeler. You'll probably be more familiar with these lovely little carbon steel peelers, very cheap. Just order them online, and it takes off such a thin shaving. And this is good for your chickens or your compost. If you're giving it your chickens, make sure you give it, you just cook it, even if you just stick it, chop it up, stick it in a tray, put it in the oven for half an hour. Chickens like them, you'll find they eat better if it's been cooked. I don't live on a farm anymore, but when I did, that was one of the things I learned. So next, I'm going to put you out of your misery now. You've seen the one on peppers, you've seen me do garlic, you've seen me do onions, and if you haven't, make sure you check out those videos. Oh, I didn't do that last bit of Swede. I'm really keeping you in suspense, aren't I? My bad. Okay, here we go. Right. That's that. You can see it's going to be a fairly bulky old soup cum stew, this is. When you do anything with beans or pulses or lentils, you'll find that lemon and citrus flavours in general, but particularly lemon, is really excellent for it. And what I do is I use a bit of the peel as well. I try not to use the white pith, because it has a couple of properties that they're excellent in other conditions, but for this sort of dish, it has properties that I don't want in the dish. One is that the pith is bitter, and the other one is that it turns things very gelatinous. So when I do use the zest, I've said this before, is I prefer to buy unwaxed lemons, and then I just take a little bit of the zest off like that, or a lot, depending how it is. For this one, I'm going to use about that much zest. You can't see it, I'll contrast it on the blade for you. There you go. I'm using about that much zest. Alright, just about. A little bit shaved off a fairly small lemon. So I'll put that over there for now. That will give flavour. That's an aromatic. That's an extreme aromatic. If you take about 2 lemons worth of that, use a mason jar, put that in the mason jar, fill the mason jar up with vodka, if you drink, fill it up with vodka and leave it, put the lid on the jar, leave it for about a week, but every day pick it up, give it a good vigorous shake, and at the end of it, what you want to do for a standard bottle of vodka, say in America a quart bottle of vodka or a litre bottle of vodka over here, is you would add something like a cupful of very strong sugar syrup, and then you've made yourself a beautiful limoncello. Just try it. I might put a video up on that, but just try it. Anyway, just while we're on the subject of lemon zest, it was worth mentioning. Right, Out of your misery, boys and girls. Right, same as with everything else. This is extremely hard, extremely tough. It doesn't have a lot of value really, other than it's been great in my photographs, and I don't really like to waste any kind of food. People who know me will tell you that. I like to be frugal if I can, and I don't like wasting good food. It's an offence against the universe to waste good food. There we go. And that's not so easy. You see what I've done, and this one is particularly difficult to trim up because of it's got two tiers effectively. It's got the what I call the mantle, and it's got the kernel in the inside. So this is a seeded squash. The seeds inside are also highly nutritious. You can separate those out. You can dry them, put them on a bit of parchment paper on a very low oven setting and just dry them, and then if you must you can add a bit of salt to them and then just nibble on them. They're really quite nice and nutritious. Don't taste too bad either. Right, there you go. That would be a nice little snack, they would. I've never actually done it with acorn squash, but I've done it with other forms of squash. I told you I didn't like wasting anything. And the seeds of just about anything are extremely nutritious, you know, it's borne out. Another thing I do is sprout my own seeds, and I don't use those expensive seed sprouters because frankly, sorry, I've not had much luck with them myself, so I'm sure they're perfectly good for those of you who've got used to them, but for me, I'd rather not use them. I think I'm going to tackle this way, the way you've seen me do so many things, by cutting it in half and tackling it as two halves, and then that way. Aha! Now we have a way of fixing it. I'm going to get my little knife out for this fella. So I've got a little sharp knife. I can run just around the edge and peel it like your mum. Peel it like your granny did. I can't remember what chefs call that. I think they call it something like kitchen sink prep. It's where they just slice it straight into the pot. But some of the best cooks in the world cook like that. Trust me, I know. Trust me, I know. Some of the old girls and boys I've met in the world that never looked at a recipe book in their life, and they learned it just because that's the way it was always done around them, you know. And they, although they're not they don't have the technical qualifications or anything like that, but boy, you eat their food. Yeah, I'm the same. I don't have any technical qualifications in food at all. Just have what I know and what I'm sharing with you. Right, here we go. So that, I suspect, although it looks rather solid at this point, I suspect that once that's had a bit of heat under it, that it'll break up more readily than the swede and the carrot, and probably about the same speed as the potato. I also suspect that that will be a rather sweet element within it. Right, let's see how we're doing with that. Cut that, I think, probably along there. See what I did there? Yeah. Keep that a bit flat, that'll be easy to work on. And that, I'm trying to cut that border off. Ah, there you go. That's come off rather easily, and back to the granny technique. There we go. And we'll get rid of the seed pod. Very nice and nutritious seeds, but they're totally the wrong texture for this kind of dish. So So we're thinking about the composition, you know. This is in the assess and assemble. These are the things that you should be. You remember we were talking about happy, H-A-P-P-Y. So I bet you're down to know what the P and the second P is, aren't you? Well, the first P is what you're watching right now, and that's called preparation. I've broken it up into mnemonics because I know that I learn really well by using mnemonics. These are where we substitute letters for actions, in case you didn't know. Can't make the right pigs here with this, aren't I? Right, and I'm trying to get most of the flavour out of this without the seeds. So sorry, it's going to make the video rather long. But anyway, fridge challenge. This is what we're doing, and we're trying to make a nutritious meal out of. I mean, perhaps the squash wasn't my best choice in terms of making a good video, but it's certainly going to be a good choice in terms of making a decent. I've lost patience with it. I'm going to cut straight through it. There we go. That can go. That can go. And we get that much out of that. That goes in there. It's really useful to use a big bladed knife for cooking and prep, and not too flexible, but not too flexible. If it's too flexible, it slips and you end up with cuts. So that's all going in that pot. That's all the dross. I don't want to mix that in with my lovely lemon there. And make sure you don't throw your knife out. I'll put that over on my draining board, so let's get this away. Tidy as you go. Got to sort that out and do that the other way around for these videos. I think I will. Just do it like that. So you'll notice from my previous videos, where all this was a load of clutter, that it's now a lot more beautiful, a lot more tidy. And this is because a certain young lady called Lauren had been on to me in the message and told me that it looked a mess and that she couldn't take her eyes off it and that it was driving her mad. And so I thought, this video isn't about me, it's about you, and it's about this. So anything that distracts from that can't be good. And young Lauren is right. And thank you for that. And we're putting the world right. So the whole point about all this is that we're learning in this video how to cook, and how to cook instinctively, not weights and measures. We're not doing that. And we're also learning how to save a ton of money by taking what you have and what you may have thrown away and turning it into something delicious and nutritious. I like the way that rhymes, by the way. And I think I first heard it in a Walt Disney film. Can't remember which one. Probably Dumbo, because that's one of my favourite Walt Disney films. Right, you know it. Right, and if you don't, watch it. So there's the carrots. I'll now come back to you when the rest of this is prepped. Okay, here we are back. I've done most of the prepping and chopping, but I'm a bit of a show off, so I thought I'd just do this. It doesn't really matter how we chop the onion up, because you'll see it's just going to go in. It's going to be blitzed. You can either do that in a liquid in a blender, or you can do it with a what do you call it? A blender stick blender. as I'm going to do. When you see me work with a stick blender, you'll be impressed. I'm doing this again, mainly because I'm a show off, and I like showing off. Goes in there, that pulls out of there. Sometimes you get little baby peppers inside the peppers. I don't know if you've seen that before, but and again, this is going to be fried. You'll notice that I've separated onions, leeks, and peppers into there. Why? Did I hear you ask why? Well, that's because in order to get the maximum flavour out of those, we're going to give them a light fry just before we add the rest of the stuff and the water and the stock to it. So all I want these to be is just big enough to, once they're cooked, is to get caught by the stick blender. You'll notice we use a lot more of the pepper when we chop it that way. So there's that's pretty much the prep done, and now we need to think about assembling it. So I'm going to put my heat on and put some heat under it. I'm going on maximum heat for now, and all the veggies saw was washed before prep. Make sure you do that. Keep it clean. And if you know, as I said before in my videos, if in doubt, throw it out. If you doubt the freshness, the quality, even if it's an expensive item like ham or something, or especially fish products. If you got any doubt at all, if the smell's off, and there's no excuse for eating a bad piece of pork or chicken because it just stinks awful. Safer meats, dark meats like lamb and beef, but you've still got to be careful. If you think it's on the verge or on the turn, don't take the risk, just throw it out. And it's quite often wise, especially if you live in a hot country, is to do the trick I learned off a Jamaican friend, and that is to wash your meat, especially in a mixture of vinegar and water. Say a cup of vinegar, and then just enough water to rinse them in, and that vinegar has been a disinfectant for certainly as you know, going back in history. I know it was used in Nelson's Navy as a disinfectant, and they used it to scrub down the decks, and that after a battle there'd be all sorts of mess on the blood and gore on the decks, and that was basically what they would have to do. I'm going to throw the garlic in not straight away, and the reasons for that is when I did the garlic prep video, the peppers and garlic, hot pepper and garlic video, I mentioned it's because it's got a high sugar content and it does have a tendency to burn. Alright, I'm just going to wait till that gets up to heat, and then I'm going to get back to you. Okay, that's coming up to heat nicely now, and I've secured some nice, this is extra virgin olive oil, but it's not the first quality, it's okay for cooking with. So because I've got onions, peppers, garlic, this is and the basil, it's got a kind of a Mediterranean thing about it, hasn't it? And I think it's going to be rather red, yellowy, sort of orangey red by the time we're finished, judging by the mixture of colours. If you're using tomatoes, it's very Italian to use basil or basil with it, and it's certainly very Mediterranean and Italian to use olive oil. Never underestimate the Italians, they are fantastic cooks, and Italian food, as anyone knows, is wonderful. Not just the Italian foods that are popular in the UK, but Italy has one of the longest life expectancies in the world, and I think it's a lot down to this old cove and garlic. That's the door. I'm going to have to get it. Okay, that was a parcel arrived from my brother. Nice little mystery parcel. That'll cheer him up when he gets back. Right, so I'm going to put a splash. How much? I don't know. Just a little splash. Don't use too much. I suppose if you must have a measure, it's about a tablespoon of olive oil in the bottom. Don't let it burn. Oh, that smells lovely already. And then in with the aromatics. The leek didn't chop through. In with the aromatics. So that's the onion, the leek, and the pepper. And let's let that crackle. And we bring Spoonzilla out again. He gets an airing every now and again. I know that's a bit of a long shot, but you know, there's endless internet pictures of stirring and turning, and you know how this happens. I'm very Cantonese in my food philosophy, so I'm a great believer in high heat and stir frying because of the wonderful flavours and the layers of caramelisation it creates in your finished product. So I use a very high heat. And all I want to do is get a little lick on it. You know, I don't want it burning through. I don't want it. I just want it. That's the garlic gone in, by the way, and give it a stir. And now, this isn't smelly vision, but I keep saying that. This isn't smelly vision, but if you could smell what's going on now, you'd be going, wow. You know, it's just. I think that there are many elements that combine to make good food, and one of them is the anticipation of it and the smells created in the home when you're cooking live proper food at home. It puts those smells into the atmosphere. Now, the companies that try to sell you those scent things will tell you that they're undesirable smells. Well, if you think the smell of food is undesirable, I think you've got a problem in your life. The smell of food is wonderful, and it's probably one of the most evocative memories you have from your childhood is the smell of food in your home. So we can discount that rubbish theory anyway, because that's just designed to sell cleaning products, which are all well and good, but keep it in its place. You know, keep it in its place, and cooking is in its place. Right, so give it another stir. I'm going to bring that to the camera rather than bring. Is that steaming up the lens? You'll see, all it is, because of the high heat, and the high heat will come in handy right now, because the next thing I'm going to do is switch my kettle on, which I've already got full of hot water, filtered water. And you'll just look at that. I mean, it's ever so slightly starting to catch on the bottom, and it's issuing that. What's that smell? It's the smell of frying onions and peppers. It's the smell, that caramelisation smell, the smell of the sugars being released from those wonderful aromatics. If you just put them in, tip everything in, tip the water in and blend it, you lose that. You don't get that in the flavour of the finished dish. And trust me, this is going to make the difference between it being a soup to being the soup. You with me? Okay. Purists are going to rag me about using these stock cubes, but you know, I've only got so many hours in a day, and the stock cubes does two things. I try to buy the ones that don't have MSG in them because I don't like monosodium glutamate in my food particularly. Some of the soy sauces you can buy have it in, but where possible I go for the ones that don't. What you put in your body is up to you. So now we've got some hot water which is boiled in the kettle. Now that is a tip. Why hot water in the kettle? Because the kettle's designed to make hot water. It's designed for it. It's designed to heat up water, and it does it really quickly and it does it efficiently. Something that isn't really efficient at heating up water is a saucepan. Okay, so get that started in there. And another good thing about it is you're not waiting for it to come up to heat so much. Now that all that's in, this is really quick. This goes really quick now, because now I'm going to chuck all that in. That's gone in. It's in. It's done. That goes in my. That goes in there for the big clean-up operation afterwards. And I need a bit more hot water in there because my brother came home for lunch and used it up. Okay, almost there. Right. Okay, cut. Right, I've got the kettle boiling again because I want to top it up. And where to, you say? Because at the moment, and what was in the kettle, it didn't completely top it up. All it did was stop it from catching on the bottom and burning, which was more important at the time. And in can go the stock cube now. Right, when you're cooking in a pot, every time you add something, you stir. That's the rules. That is the rules. Beautiful. Right. And at this point, I'm going to spend the time and chop up this into little tiny strands. So I've gathered it all together, knife in the correct position, fingers in the correct position, rocking the blade, and cutting off the fine strips. All right. Be careful with your knife skills, because I'm not 100% peat. I'm 99.999% peat, and the little bit that's missing is off the tip of that finger. So take it seriously. My great friends Chris and Jon, that's Chris Deogee and Jon Witterick. They're both great YouTubers. Get in, see what they're doing. They've got an important message for all of us, for the whole of mankind. So make sure you look those two guys up. And if possible, I'll find you links in below here on it. All right. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to put any more of that in. So I've added the aromatic lemon peel to it. Just a little bit of lemon zest. Why? I don't know. It's just I get my inspiration from the food. The food was there, and it spoke to me. It said, "Yeah, me, use me." So I did. And if you start to cook instinctively, you'll notice. You'll notice that these things come to you. All right. Before I top that up with water, I'm going to add my passata. Just sieve tomatoes. They come in cartons, ultra heat treated cartons, or you can just blend up a couple of cans of tomatoes and then chuck those in, because I need to find out what my level is. Okay. Okay. Waste not, want not. I'll pour my water into there first. Get all that flavour. I can't afford to throw money away. Can you? Right. Another great thing to do is if you've got the space and you've got the garden, grow food. It's easy to grow. It grows at night as well as during the day. Not quite as quick, but it still grows. So you are... It's like printing money. If you're growing food, it's like printing your own money. And it grows at night, so you're earning money in your sleep. Think of it that way. I don't have the room here to grow. However, I do grow my own herbs and stuff. I buy these ones, as the indoor ones. And I've got rosemary and mints and other robust herbs growing outdoors. For a little outlay, you've always got fresh herbs on your hands. Right. See, I'm being tidy, Lauren. Waves to Lauren. And we bring this up to a boil now and give it a stir. I'm sure you're dying to see what that looks like. Let's bring it back to the camera because, look at that. Beautiful and colourful, isn't it? And you see the liquid level, it's just kind of up there. It's just brimming the, if you see the liquid level there, it's just brimming the vegetables, and that's how I want it. That's where you want to be with that. I probably won't need to use any flour. I probably won't need to use anything to thicken this because it will probably thicken under its own steam. And if it doesn't, all we've got to do is mash up a couple of them before we put them in the pot. So we'll see after we blended it. We'll see. Now you can blend it in batches. Get a ladle and ladle it into your liquid blender, or you can use a stick blender like I do for this. And this is where the stick blender really comes into its own because I'm not having to transfer stuff to a bowl and then or transfer it by ladle to a liquidizer. I'm just running it. Okay, I'm going to wait. It doesn't take too long to cook a vegetable soup. It takes just long enough to turn the vegetables. So you need to observe the pot. Look at your hardest vegetable in the pot. And a good little trick I use, if I can just reach in here and grab one, is I use these bamboo skewers. You can buy them just about anywhere. And I just stab into the vegetables. And it's difficult to explain, but if you took a bean out of a tin and you stabbed it like that's got too much give in it because it's too cooked, if you understand in terms of vegetables. So you want your vegetable to be just so it needs to be offering resistance, yet the skewer goes straight through it. It's a great tester. It's long, so you can go straight into a pot without burning your hands and test it while it's still in the pot. Great little things. Bamboo skewers in the barbecue section of your Walmart or wherever it is you buy your stuff from. Another thing, when obtaining vegetables, the next best thing to growing your own vegetables is, if there's a scheme in your area, and there is when I lived in East Anglia, there was a wonderful scheme where locals who grow their own vegetables would put their surplus out in what they called an honesty box. An honesty box is a wonderful concept whereby instead of buying something that's expensive, packaged, irradiated, and the organic options are always hideously expensive, you can find something that someone's grown in their garden with love, and I have to tell you that if it's grown in a garden and it's grown with love, the love will go into the food and the love goes into you. All right, so that's just the way I feel. That's my philosophy of food. So the better it is, the more love that goes into it, and then the more love goes into you. Garbage in, garbage out, love in, love out. Okay, I'm going to put this bottle away and I'll get back to you as soon as my vegetables are al dente. Okay, that's been bubbling away for a while now. Let's just take a look at it, shall we? I'll bring it over here. And, oh, there's a gush of steam. So let's have a look at it. It looks nice. It certainly smells nice. Oops, steamed up my glasses. And we'll give it a dip. And I'm judging that those pieces of Rutabaga or Swede will take the longest to cook. So if I can spear one of those, which I can, we've got it to the point. As I predicted, the squash would cook very quickly. Squash is a great thing to add to soups and stews. Any kind of squash. In Hong Kong they eat this delicious soup called winter melon soup, and it's like a rather large white flesh dense melon. If you've ever had winter melon soup, oh my god, it's just fabulous. Just like everything else was in Hong Kong actually. Right, so we've got it to that stage, and unfortunately, because I'm going to turn it into a soup, what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend it now. Now you can either ladle this out into your liquidizer or blender or whatever you want to call it and whiz it up to the required consistency, or you can get yourself a stick blender. I wouldn't part with this. I love it, and you'll probably hear me say that 1,000 times if you subscribe and watch to my channel. But we'll crack on and we'll do these. Do this now. You don't need to hear this, so what I'll do is I'll just start it off, and then we can. Oh, it's not so bad, is it? And what I'm doing at first is I'm just going plunging down to get those jaws engaging on the larger pieces. You can probably see it a little bit better if we do it that way. And already you can see it's starting to take the shape. Right, I'm going to whack it right on. Oh. Careful on these, because if you whack the speed right up, it's trying to pull you into the soup. My basil and lemon's taking a battering from the lead there, look. The next evolution of this is, of course, is to have hand. Are you listening, DeVault and Black & Decker? We need handheld versions of it. Makita, are you listening? Handheld version of this. Battery powered. Handheld. Space age. Right, what I've got is a rather thick consistency here, and I am actually, because I want it to be more liquid than it is, I'm going to add about a cup, say a cup of liquid to that, and all I'm doing is adding hot water from the kettle. Yeah. Once you've broken up most of the big lumps with a stick blender, I'm going to have to turn that down a little bit. Commercial blenders are often regulated, speed regulated, and on this one I've got a little plus minus wheel on the top. So if you're doing a blending operation like this, and you find that it's splashing up too much, you can always crank it down a little bit. this one's Dynamics 160. It's made in France and it's really robust. Like a lot of French kitchen appliances, it's really robust, and it gets the job done, you know. So vive la France. That's a place where we're going to have to tackle that. I'm going to have to do a little binge on France at some point. But the French cuisine is so fated. It's so well known throughout the world. I'm tempted to actually concentrate on other places. Concentrate on other places before I concentrate on France, because there are other places worthy of merit, and Middle East, Far East, Caribbean, and for those of us in Europe, America is well worth exploring with regard to food, because they've taken recipes from Europe and they've made them very much their own. One of them is a hamburger. It was a simple patty, and that probably originated in Genghis Khan's army, where they used to put the meat under the saddles to tenderize it as they travelled, and they'd form it into patties and cook it, because they were an army on the move. And I don't need to tell you, if you've got any knowledge of history, how successful Genghis Khan was. And I think the idea of using meat like that, I mean, I've seen in Turkey you've got kofta, you've got minced meat kebabs, like sheep kebabs and that, in the Indian subcontinent, and it's just migrated all over the world, and in the western and northern in the west and in the northern hemisphere and elsewhere in the world, we use sausages, you know, which are basically just taking the concept and putting the ground meat into a skin and cooking it, rather than slapping it on a skewer and cooking it. And I think the hamburger probably got to America from Ellis Island, where the ships would embark from Hamburg and come into New York, and the hamburgers had to carry a portable snack called a fricadella, which was basically a meat patty made out of pork, and quite often in Hamburg they make it out of pork and beef. I'm a bit of authority on that because my stepmother was from Hamburg, and they make fricadellas out of pork and beef, and they're delicious to eat either hot or cold. And if you slap that in a bun, you start to get hamburger. And then the Americans took hold of that probably and made it into pure Americana. I mean, the hamburger is, to me, is the best beef sandwich in the world. It's awesome, and I think they also make the second best beef sandwich in hot pastrami and rye, but we won't go into that. Okay, it'll just make me more hungry, and I'm hungry as hell smelling this right now. So let's crack on with this. I've got it down to a thick consistency, and as I predicted again, it's really very thick. Let me show you. Let me do it with this larger spoon. It's really like that, you know. So let me bring it up to you. It's really rather thick. See that? Very thick. It stands up on the spoon. I'm going to add another cup of water to that because I don't want it that thick. Nice as it might be, I'm going to add another cup of water to that. Just eyeball it like I do everything else, mostly. Aha, now you see. Now it's starting to behave and look like a soup. I'm just going to go round and make sure the bigger lumps are combined. And what I want to do now is add this, the basil. It's just like a slack handful of basil leaves. I'm not over concerned with chopping that basil up too much, because it's nice to have a bit of, I don't know, bit of presence in there, you know, rather than one homogeneous sludge. Right, I'm not going to need to mash up beans, but if you need to mash up beans, I'll show you the technique. Is where, oh, put my knife away, I've been a good boy today. Is where you mash up your beans, and a simple technique for that is just to do that, really. Press down with your blade of your knife, and mashing up beans to thicken things is a very common thing, certainly in Latin American cooking and elsewhere in the world. I've got a recipe. If you go to my new website, I've ported everything from my blog over to a blog on my own domain, and I've ported all the old recipes across to that. I'll put a link to that just down below here. You can look up my old recipe garbanzos. It's not in video format, not yet, and I would like for my viewers to have a look at that site, look through the old written recipes, the ones I made before I was a YouTuber. Have a look through them, see the ones that spark your fancy, and enter them in the comments below here, and I will read through them. I'll pay attention to what you're saying, like I have to Lauren. Thanks, Lauren. And we'll do the most popular of them. We'll probably do them all in order, but let me know the ones you want to see. The difference between this TV as a spectator thing, where you just sit there and blindly look at the TV dribbling out of both corners of your mouth, and the internet is the level of interaction we've got with the internet. The level of interaction means that you can have a direct email conversation with me, and if we get on rather well, we can probably even chat on Skype or something like that. Let's just get a dialogue going. I want to get a dialogue going with you guys, you and me, and this. Let's get a dialogue going with you, me and the food, and together we'll create something amazing. Alright, the Fridge Challenge series is a way of getting you to look at what you've got, making do with what you've got. When you get to the end, you know, you're at the end of the week and you're just about to go out shopping again. You've got that stuff in your fridge that you want to use up. This is what you do with it. You apply the Fridge Challenge principles, the happy principle. Hunt your fridge, freezer, cupboard. Then you assess and assemble. You balance your flavourings. You want your aromatics and your staples, and we'll call that BAFS: balance, aromatics, flavourings and staples. So that's the assess. Then there's the P. The first P is prep: cut, chop, slice. The second P, here it comes, dum, da, da, dum, 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 da, is production. You cook it and season it, and this is kind of where we're at now. And the last one is the best bit. That's yummy. Like it? Happy. Happy, yummy. That's where you get to eat it. Okie doke. And show it off to your friends, of course, and they'll think you're such a wonderful cook, because you are, and you will be. Okay, that's exactly the consistency I want it. It's lovely and sort of thick and gloopy, and it's like an expensive store-bought soup, really, you know. And what's that cost us? It's cost us, well, it's actually paying us, because it's stuff we might otherwise have thrown away, so it's actually paying us to eat that. It's paying us one way in money in the time we would have to spend to earn that money. It's paying us in nutrition, it's paying us in flavour, and need I go on, really. So I'm going to add the beans to that now, and then I'm just going to stir them around. I'll use that while it's there. I just want the beans in there as a texture item. I don't want to what I don't want to do with the beans is mash them up anymore. They're mashed up enough. So I'm going to get that back on the heat and bring it back up to temperature, just to make sure the beans are cooked through. In this case, the canned beans, or they're pre-cooked beans. And the very last thing we do in the production phase is to season it, because that's the last thing we do before we eat it. And for the seasonings, I'm going to see how it balances with that lemon, because generally if you add beans, like I said before, if you add beans or pulses, the lemon and lemon particularly, because lemon's the warmer one, whereas lime is more cooling. I think that is certainly the way I look at it, and that's my philosophy. But if you add lemon to this, and maybe something very spicy, you would probably want to add lime to it. So what grows together goes together. So in the countries where limes are common, you'll probably find they eat quite a lot of spicy food. That's certainly true of Thailand and Vietnam and places like that. Oh yeah, Thailand and Vietnam. A little shout goes out to two of my favourite YouTubers, two wonderful, and they both happen to be beautiful young ladies as well. So there's a pattern forming here. Two beautiful young YouTubers. One of them is Pailin, who is a United States, Canada based, perhaps, I don't know, certainly in North America, Thai cook. She's fantastic, she's prolific, she's put loads of stuff up, and it's I think she's now going under the banner of Pie's Kitchen, but it'll be below here. And another one is a really sweet girl, I think she lives in Germany, again ethnic Vietnamese, and her name is Helen, Helen's Recipes. Have a look at that. For a list of all the links and people I thoroughly endorse, because I've used their recipes, I go to them regularly for tips, are all, if you look on my channel and just look at the recommend, or I think it's under recommended links, I'm not sure, but just look at my links on there, and these are all people I thoroughly endorse. And if you're on a learning curve, or you just want to cook something special and you don't want my generalized sort of cookery, you need to go to the if you're cooking Vietnamese, you need to go to the Vietnamese and go to Helen's Recipes or another Vietnamese YouTuber and find out what they're doing. Helen's Recipes and Pailin's Kitchen are excellent resources for me, and I'm sure they'll be for you. So that's another two people, fellow YouTubers I would very much endorse. So that's just heating through again, and I think what we do is I'm going to bring it sounds like it's bubbling again, so what I'm going to do is bring it off. Yeah, that's cool. So the beans are up to heat, and oh boy, now I get to taste it. Clean spoon. This is the important part of cooking. Hi. There. Okay. It tastes as you would expect. It tastes wonderful. The peppers have given it something amazing. and I think that acorn squash has given it a real deep depth of flavour, that umami flavour. I'm loath to add too much lemon to that, but I'll put just that and that. So it's about 1/3 of a small lemon. That's all. The juice of. Okay. Another trick you can don't forget we put the lemon zest in the original, and that is one of the flavours that come through, as does the basil, as you probably say in North America. The other thing that needs now is some pepper. I love black pepper. You will see me cranking this till the cows come home. You add as much as you like, but I'm just going to go nuts. Yeah, here we go. Also, another way of adding peppery flavours to things like this is if you think it needs a spicy kick, go to your favourite hot sauce recipe or your favourite store-bought hot sauce and just add a bit of that. Why not? You know, just stir it in, taste, stir it in, taste, see where you've got to with it, adjust it. Now, the things to adjust the flavour with obviously is pepper, citrus. It could, if something feels flat and bland and or it just doesn't have a zest, a zing to it, just put lemon in it, or a good quality vinegar like balsamic vinegar or something like that, but something acidic. And what that'll do is it'll brighten it up, and it can turn something that's otherwise fairly bland or boring into something that's, suddenly you're tasting everything in it. You've gone from it being rather flat and dry to something. It's the difference between canned soup and homemade soup. Trust me, you know, canned soup. If you are having canned vegetable soup, that's your best friend. That's if you're the sort of person that uses canned soup. I'm not, because it's so cheap and easy to make your own. And I'm going to put some salt in that as well. The salt I'm using and that put in this shaker is in this grinder is Himalayan pink salt, which I really love. It's a mined salt, and it's from somewhere in the Himalayas. It's mined, which means it hasn't been in the sea and therefore subject to all the contamination that the sea's got. And also, it's not as salty as sea salt. So you need to probably add a little bit more than you would otherwise do of sea salt. And most commercially available salt, kosher salt and all that, it is generally sea salt. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll probably have the London Beth Din on to me now, telling me what kosher salt is, but there you go. Let's now do a serving of this, see what it looks like, and let me just prep that into a little garnish. That'll do. Okay, and we'll get a bowl out. This bowl. Okay, I've fumbled around for a bit and I found a ladle. I'm going to present this in a lovely white bowl. If you want to show your food off, show it off in a white bowl. As you see, it's substantial. It's got the beans in it. It's ours. We made it up from nowhere. Make it look a bit prettier. Nice little serving thing, and we'll put a smile on it. There you go. So there you go. That's it presented. Never throw basil in the bin. That's it presented. and it's ready there. It's smiling at you, and that is Fridge Challenge Mediterranean style vegetable soup. Now I'm going to taste it and tell you what that's like. I know already, but oh, forgive me, boys and girls. Oh my god. What? I'm having a moment. Oh my lord. Okay. Fridge Challenge, be happy.